The essential point about Valentine's Day is if you'd gone on a date before the first sexual revolution and ended up in bed together, you'd be in terrible trouble. You're liable to be punished, to be whipped, to be banished from your homes. Nowadays, that's not the case. And I think that is a good example of how far we've come and what the first sexual revolution has brought about. Nowadays, people take for granted that consenting adults can do what they like in the privacy of their own bedroom. There are really two aspects to the first sexual revolution. The first is new ways of living, new ways of behaving, new ways of talking about sex, and that comes about mainly in cities. So very important to this is the explosion of urbanization. And England here is in the vanguard, and London especially is the most important place where this happens. At the end of the Middle Ages, only about 40,000 people live in London. By 1800, it's the biggest city in the Western world. More than 1 million people live there. And that creates entirely new ways of living. It puts the policing of sexual discipline under impossible strain. It's impossible to police a city like that in the way that traditional rural societies. And on the other hand, there's an intellectual revolution. The Enlightenment happens in the 18th century, and that leads to a tremendous shift in how people conceive of right and wrong and where they look for authority. The celebration of sex is a really powerful central aspect of the Enlightenment, and you see that manifested, I think, most pithily in the great line by John Wilkes, the 18th century wit and poet and politician, who wrote, "Life can little more supply than just a few good fucks, and then we die." And that's not just about the pleasure of sex, which is so newly celebrated in the 18th century, but also about the role of sex in the whole of human existence. It now comes for the first time to be argued that sex is not just any old pleasure, but that it is actually a central part of how we should enjoy life on Earth, and that life on Earth may well be the most important thing there is about God's purpose. One of my favourite examples is the great explosion of pin-ups in the 18th century. In fact, it's the moment at which pin-ups of sexual celebrities are first created. Kitty Fisher, Fanny Murray. If you were obsessed by one of these new sexual celebrities, you could go along and buy pin-ups of them in the print shops for a few pence. One remarkable thing is that for most of Western history, people thought that of the two sexes, women were the more lustful, that women were the dangerous seducers, that they were the ones who led men astray. And then the first sexual revolution takes this idea and turns it completely on its head. And from then on, we've always presumed that men were the irredeemably promiscuous, dangerous, rapacious sex, and that women are much less sexual, that they are perhaps even asexual, as the Victorians thought. Now, that's an idea that reached its apogee in the 19th century, but we're still living with the effects of that. We still take for granted that men are more sexual than women, and that is an extraordinary consequence of that first sexual revolution. If we look around the world today, it's really remarkable to what extent in other parts of the world people are now undergoing the same kinds of processes of intellectual and social change that happened in the West 400 years ago. And the balance of circumstances is very different, but some of the key ingredients that I talk about as having happened in the West now are playing out in the Arab world, in the Indian subcontinent, in China, elsewhere. And when I go and talk in places like that about my work, I'm really struck by the extent to which people are finding parallels for themselves between that Western sexual revolution and what's now happening in their countries.